Hello, guys. I am Shane Davis, 20-year comic book veteran. I'm here today to talk about Decimated DC once again with Yanzi Lynn. Before we get into it, please hit like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. Today, we are talking about a rumor that Rob Liefeld, John Malin, thinking of you, said. Now, this is his words, not mine, so I'm just going to play it. This pertains to Jim Lee and DC Comics in the state of DC Comics as Zaslav is making cuts. Now, what happens usually when there's a corporate shakeup or there's new management coming in? Usually all your, what I would call second tier management, the people up under, there is a bit of a corporate shift. And where these people go, that's what's interesting. So here, let's hear it straight from Rob.
I feel like it'll be 25 years and they can trumpet that. And that is my prediction. So it actually puts Jim in a much better spot. So this is in no way, shape, or form diminishing him in any way. I believe Jim will be at Marvel drawing the X-Men within six months to a year. Easy. I believe he is out of DC within 6 months because I'm not sure what's going on with publishing there. They're going to scale it way back, transform it into something else. But I do not believe the publishing that we know right now with DC is going to exist in the same way, shape, or form. And my prediction is that Jim will be drawing the X-Men or doing a giant Marvel project within 12 months. And that is, I feel so good about that. I'd wager it. That's how positive I am.
So there you go. That is straight from the horse's mouth. That is coming from one of the founders of Image Comics. Rob Liefeld was one of the 7 founders of Image Comics. I think 7. I may be off. 7 founders that went and left Marvel Comics. They, at the height of what some people said was the height of their career, making and selling millions of copies of books. Okay, now Jim Lee sold how many copies of X-Men #1?
Marvel printed 8 million.
Now, people are going to say, this is Rob just running off at the mouth. Crazy, Shane. You can't put any stock in this. And I'm going to say, I don't know. See, Rob has been predicting a lot of things that would happen with DC Comics, and a lot of comic book industry doesn't take Rob too serious. Now, Rob has predicted that DC Comics was going off a cliff. All the shakeups, everything to do with AT&T. It was a madhouse, and we actually saw that. We saw things like I'm Not Starfire come out. We saw, look at the state of DC Comics right now. Okay,
everybody's by. Okay.
Everybody, like, there has been no steady direction in DC Comics, and people again laughed at Rob, but there were a lot of bloodbaths also that happened, and he was kind of right. Now, has he got an inside man at DC Comics feeding him this stuff? Most likely. And the reason why is there was a lot of VPs, like including Jim Lee, but a lot of VPs like Hank Canals, who at the time were at DC Comics, and they actually had ties with Image Comics going back in the 90s. So a lot of these guys, possible to say they have relations, that they talk, that there's inside information, sure. But this stuff about Jim Lee is interesting to me because absolutely something's going to happen with Jim. I don't think Jim's going to sit as chief creative officer when he's been chief creative officer on a lot of these projects that Zaslav is cutting, like Batgirl, cutting these projects, going through, cutting a lot of TV shows that were greenlit, and mainly because of quality.
I think what was happening with Jim Lee was that, the position of chief creative officer, for those who don't know, is he basically oversees the transmedia direction for DC Comics, all these movies, TV shows, to make sure that there's one cohesive universe for the DC characters. And for some reason, Jim has not been able to do a very good job at it. We even had things like, Gotham Knight, thank God it's been cancelled. I do not think we need to see that disaster. Naomi ran for 1 season, surprisingly, because most shows like Naomi probably only get 1 pilot, and if it looks good, it performs well, then they'll order a whole season. But no, he got a whole season straight away. So you can guess who signed off on that. Batwoman, there's only talk about that TV show. We all know how the ratings went. Blah, blah, blah. Batgirl cancelled. Supergirl most likely cancelled. The Black Canary most likely cancelled. It's like, wait a minute, who are all these CD tier characters? What are they doing in the cinematic universe when you can't even get a proper Superman movie going? Hello?
Yeah, every script on all of these TV things goes in front of Jim Lee. Like, so that's the chief creative officer's job. Now, before that, he was co-publisher and a hell of a comic artist. And that's where Rob's going with this, is he's like, he's going to be back at Marvel Comics and he's going to draw X-Men in 6 months. He's going to do something. Now, why would people start putting stock in this? Okay, Jim Lee X-Men #1 original cover art. Now, this was 4 connecting covers on a book that sold 8 million copies. Original cover was bought to match the rest of it. So this set sold. Okay, so what's up with that? Okay, an undisclosed price. You don't know who the buyer is. You don't know what the price was. I'm going to let you know, like, I have been told it was somewhere around $4 million.
Oh,
Okay,
that's sweet.
that is sweet. That is sweet. This is a very famous connecting cover. Now, you're going to bring up a page from his X-Men run. What did it sell for?
Well, it seems like it's not just covers of Jim Lee's that I'm bringing in the bank. One single page of Jim Lee art. It looks like it's issue number 271, page 4 of X-Men. This page over here. I mean, yeah, there's a nice shot of Wolverine and Jubilee and stuff, but, well, how much do you think this sold for?
I don't know.
$360,000.
So there is a high demand for Jim Lee X-Men. Now, why would Marvel actually pony up the price for Jim? And is this a good decision for Jim? The mutants. Okay, so Marvel is taking the man out of X-Men.
Smash the patriarchy. No more men allowed.
So is it a good business decision? And I think it is. I agree with Rob on this, that Disney would actually pony up the money and cook up some deal that's worth Jim Lee coming and doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And rebranding X-Men, or whatever you want to call it, the mutants. Let's say he's going to come over and do the mutants #1 with 4 connecting covers and whatever, sell X a million. Marvel, they're not going to sell like 8 million copies. I can tell you that, not in this comic book climate. But it would turn a lot of heads, a lot of retrospective heads, and it would build hype on whatever they're going to do with this movie, with the new version of X-Men, obviously Disney's X-Men. Now, it would also give kind of like a blessing in a weird way. It would bring up a lot of fans. Like when Jim Lee came on to, when DC Comics bought Wildstorm, they basically bought Wildstorm because they wanted Jim Lee to work on Batman Hush. Now, how many copies did this sell? Now, nowhere near 8 million copies, but something interesting happened when he was on Hush. Number one, because Hush was worked on for 3 years, it just kind of slid into a random Batman issue. It was not a Batman #1. It was like Batman, 606 or something like that?
608. So for people who want to know how the sales actually went up exponentially, so issue 607, which is just before Jim's run, it sold 46,527 copies. All right, so that's not 50,000 copies of Batman was selling at that point in time. The moment Jim Lee came on, they sold 139,000 copies. That is close to 3 times this previous month's sale. And by the time they reached the end of the arc, which is issue 619, over 310,000 copies of Batman was sold. So think about the crazy sales that Jim Lee himself can bring in if he decides to come in and reboot the X-Men.
Now, what's interesting about this run is there was hype being generated in the property, and it was the sales were going up with every issue. Now, that is not the normal in the American comic book publishing. Actually, #1s, and this is why you get so many #1s, is the only thing the comic industry right now can sell, and we're getting to the point we can't even sell that. So a #1 issue, it's already cutting probably by a third. Issue #2, and then by issue #3, it's probably in half. And you're almost right back to square one. You're coasting off of the fumes or the fat that you made off of issue #1 till you get to the next reboot or cancellation, and maybe you make some of that money back in the trade. So ideally, the point is could Marvel get Jim Lee, and could he generate sales? Okay, so 1, I do think he could generate sales. 2, I do think they could get him because I don't think he's long for this world at DC Comics. Jim obviously kind of stepped out of the publishing seat as publisher, as co-publisher, not doing that anymore. And I don't really see him stepping back into it after he stepped out of it. So that's a weird move on Jim's part. Is he going to get a golden parachute? Yeah, technically, that's the thing people are going to say. Shane, he's just going to get a golden parachute and we'll never see Jim do anything in comics ever again. That's the worst thing for Jim, is to be fired. The best thing for Jim would be to go to Marvel rather than be fired. Do one run at Marvel, make a buttload of money, even if it's less money, make a buttload of money, and then just go do your own thing. Jim has done and sampled crowdfunding a little bit with a book bag with a print, and it raised quite a bit of money on Kickstarter. Should he go straight there? I don't think so, because if he goes straight there, it's just going to look like he's been fired from DC Comics. Plus, if he takes a golden parachute, the thing about the golden parachute kind of benefit deal for these people at DC Comics when they get fired is oftentimes you'll notice they don't poke up in comics like, say, Dan now with this Frank Miller company. They kind of go dormant for a couple of years. And that's because there's a non-compete clause that that is attached to that golden parachute. What that means is they're not able to work in any type of entertainment whatsoever for X amount of years if they take the money. Ideally, that was in place because at one point in time, these publishing companies, which now are big entertainment conglomerates, they had some sort of strategy laid out for like maybe 2 to 5 years. To them, if you took that type of deal, you can't just run across to another publisher and tell them what their whole publishing plan is. So now you can adjust and be more competitive with yours. In comics today, they're not planning 5 feet in front of their face. So it's funny how that clause is still there. It's a good deal of course, if Jim can just, not have to work for years when he leaves DC Comics. I'm sure the same is there for Joe Quesada when he left Marvel Comics. But I think in the case of Joe Quesada, it looks like he's fired. It doesn't look like he left because he's like, oh, I'll go do something else in film or whatever. Until we see that, like, he pretty much is sitting on his thumbs. Jim, I think, like, going to Marvel actually looks like he quit instead of getting fired. And I think that might be the best situation for him and any type of legacy he has. And I actually think this is a great deal for Marvel Comics when you look at all the Batman t-shirts and lunchboxes they were able to sell at DC Comics off of one Batman run he did. They made their money times a million just by selling product, not even a comic. So if they could get Jim on X-Men, whatever you're going to call it, the mutants, and it looked like something people are interested in, I think that would be the best thing for Marvel Comics. And this would probably be his return to Marvel Comics since he had a run on the Fantastic Four, which people really didn't like. So it's interesting to see where this goes. Anyways, guys, if you will, please leave me a comment down below. Hit like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we will catch you guys again with another video.